recording in three, two, one. Now we are on. Pempho, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Anotida. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's a pleasant morning here.
That's awesome. Same
Yeah,
here.
wonderful, wonderful. So, thank you very much for joining me online. I've been talking to lots of people living in different parts of the world, ordinary
Mhm.
people, and I've been soliciting for their thoughts and experiences in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. So I do have
Yeah.
a couple of questions for you. But before I ask the questions, I just want you to introduce yourself and tell us where you come from and possibly what you do.
All right. So my name is Pempho Chinkondenji, and I'm from Lilongwe, Malawi, but I'm presently living in Massachusetts, specifically in Sunderland. I'm a PhD student, and I'm studying international education policy at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And I'm more interested in girls' education, and I primarily look at in school pregnancies, as well as I just started going into gender and education in emergencies. Back home in Malawi, I co founded a nonprofit organization called Loving Arms Malawi, and this organization focuses on promoting girls' education in rural Malawian contexts, more specifically in the villages surrounding the capital, which is Lilongwe. And we also do raise awareness about sexual violence because in most of these societies, it is a taboo topic. And so we try to go and reach out to community leaders, girls, as well as their families to just make sure that there's that support and community that can be just to encourage the young women and girls and boys in those societies.
That's wonderful, Pempo. You're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
That's commendable. That's commendable. Well, firstly, I would want to understand. I would like to ask you from a personal perspective, how has the
Mm-hmm.
coming in of this COVID pandemic affected you personally? Did you have any plans that you wanted to pursue that you
Mm-hmm.
feel that they have been blocked by the restrictions that have been posed by the pandemic?
Absolutely. And I think the first thing is just my doctoral program. So I just finished my coursework and I was going to start my comprehensive exams. And in my program, you write papers. You have to write an applied paper and a theoretical paper. And for the applied paper, I was planning to go home to Malawi to collect data that I was going to use. I was planning to leave in May. I think it was May 31st, but my flight got canceled. I was flying with KLM. And I had two different tickets. So one was direct to Amsterdam, then South Africa, from South Africa to Malawi. But one got canceled. The other one's not. So I'm not sure if that trip is going to happen. I am hoping and trusting that maybe things will get better. But my government has presently closed its borders. And so even if my flight is still leaving, I don't know if I'll be able to go. And also, my classes have transitioned to online and it's not as comfortable as it is for me learning in person. I had to write all these papers for these classes. I don't know, if I'm going to do that because there were some alternatives that the instructors provided, like doing a poster instead of a paper. So I may eventually do that, but I wasn't really interested in changing what I plan to do for my coursework. So it's been quite challenging. Absolutely.
Oh, I see. I see.
Hmm.
That's a very challenging position that you are in. I've been talking to other students who are studying their degree programs, PhD, masters, and undergraduate
Hmm.
programs in Africa and in Asia, and it has
Yeah.
been quite the same case with some other students. But
Hmm.
now, provided that you are an international graduate student who is
Yeah.
separated from family and living far away from home,
Yeah.
do you feel supported psychologically, financially, and emotionally in these trying and hard times?
I would say that I feel supported in terms of like my financial standing. I work presently as a graduate assistant in the Instruction and Media Lab, and I'm really thankful that this contract is like a 12-month contract, and so We're still getting paid, and like our supervisor is processing our contracts for the summer. So I'm really grateful that we still have that, because I know that there are some students who, their campuses are closed, and so they won't be able to continue their work. And so it's quite challenging. And at the same time, I am working remotely. So at least I'm able to do that outside of the office and still continue doing my work. So I'm really grateful for that. I have my church that's been super supportive.
Wonderful.
So like after the pandemic started, my church started Zoom meetings every week. So like I started joining this young adults group that we meet once a week, which has been super amazing. Just spending time with people that and just talking, and so it's been really good. I think the only challenge is being so far away from home, and considering that right now the pandemic has, it's spread out to different parts of the world. And Malawi a few weeks ago reported their first registered cases, and so that has it's really hard to be so far away from home and know that your country doesn't have the capacity to be able to handle this pandemic. But I'm just here trusting God, because I do trust God, and hoping that, it's going to get better soon, and that my government is really trying to put in measures to support that. So, so that's been one of my hardest things.
Yeah, sure thing. We should feel very hopeful and optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that your church is maintaining that sense of solidarity and community
Absolutely.
among its congregants. It's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Pempho, I understand that you are in touch with many people in Malawi from what you are saying.
Yes.
And what have they been telling you about this pandemic? How has it impacted the country? And possibly, has the government declared a shutdown like it is the case with many other countries?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of Malawi, the way I see it, it's like there are two narratives that are going. You have the government having its own, idea of how they're understanding this situation. And then you also see how people, especially maybe from the opposition, like opposition parties, and even just other critiques, just criticizing some of the approaches and implementations that the government is doing. So as of April 14, Malawi had 16 registered cases of COVID-19 and 2 deaths. And so a few days ago, I think it was on Tuesday, the president declared that Malawi is going to have a lockdown effective April 18. And however, even though they're bringing in this lockdown, in the past few weeks, the president declared a state of disaster. And when that happened, it was just the close down of all schools. So all the students from preschool to university had to return to their homes because they couldn't stay in school anymore. Then on Tuesday, that's when the president declared that effective on the 18th, the lockdown. And for the lockdown, they have like all the informal markets and local traders, they have to shut down, and they have like some time frame for them to be out. I think it's like from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. I could be wrong, but something like that. And also they have started recruiting health workers. The last time the president did a national address, they had about 626 people out of 2,000 that they're planning to recruit. So you see that they're doing all these great things. They're deploying enforcement officers across the country at all the borders to ensure that there's proper screening of everybody coming in. And there are also these awareness campaigns that they're doing. However, with the lockdown that the president announced on April 14, a lot of people are finding it a little problematic, considering that Malawi, the Supreme Court in Malawi, ruled out our previous election. And and they announced that the election was going to be on May 10. The lockdown starts on the 18th and ends on May 9 at midnight, so that's like before the day of the election.
Day of the elections. Oh my God.
Exactly. So people are getting frustrated, people are getting upset, thinking that this is more of a political imperative, that the government is taking advantage of the lockdown just to make sure that they avoid the fresh election that's coming up.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of criticism around that. And the other thing, I think, was about just the economic consequences of this lockdown, because you have most of Malawians depend on informal trade. And so when they close down the markets and limit the amount of time people sell their food, people depend on selling cassava and maize on the streets. If they lock
On a daily basis, right?
on a daily basis. So if
Yeah.
this is restricted, it's very difficult for people to survive, because people don't have as many options as they do in the United States. If you give people a lockdown in America, people, they can have food delivered to their homes. You don't have something like that for, people in rural Malawi. And so there is that. And also, people are just looking at this, thinking of how like multinational corporations are still operating, right? So, like, for example, KFC is doing drive-throughs. People with cars and money can be able to do that. And these multinational corporations are still making money. Well, you have these local Malawians who are just at home. They can't even make money to feed their children. And so those are some of the things that people are talking about. And it's really difficult. I'm not sure how it's gonna, eventually turn out, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks very much for those insights. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Pempho, for your responses. I'm afraid I'm running out of time, but I greatly appreciate your participation in these interviews. I would kindly ask you to invite you to like COVID-19 Memoirs on Facebook, where we have been posting some of the other interviews that we have conducted with other nationalities living across the globe. We
absolutely. I will.
are trying to create the biggest social media oral history archives for the special collections that is going to be used by lots of generations in the future who would like to research about how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted different lots of ordinary people living in different parts of the world.
Sure, no problem. I was more than happy to support.
Wonderful. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thanks, you too, Anotida.
Wonderful.
Bye.